The Millstone Psalm, by John Zerga Jr., the heavy metal prophet, a cry against the sinning upon children, a psalm of lamentation, intercession, and divine petition, drawn from the fullness of Scripture, the hidden books, and the ancient way. Part 1. The cry of witness invoking God's attention to the suffering of children, O Lord, El Elyon, Most High God, who fashioned the infant in the secret chambers of the womb, who breathed the living light into every small and tender vessel. Hear now this bitter cry rising from the earth, for the blood of the little ones soaks the ground beneath our feet, and their tears have filled a sea no ship can cross. As the blood of Abel cried out to you from the soil, so now 10,000 Abels cry, children whose hands never learned to make a fist, whose mouths were formed for laughter, now opened only in silent screaming. You said, before I formed you in the belly I knew you. Before you came forth out of the womb, I sanctified you. Yet the ones you sanctified are broken upon the wheel of cruelty, shattered by the very hands appointed to shelter them. I have seen the small body curled in the corner of a dark room, and I tell you, Lord, it is heavier than all the theology of men. One bruise on the arm of a child outweighs every scroll in every temple that was ever built. One whimper in the night drowns out every hymn sung by comfortable mouths. This is not a metaphor. This is flesh. This is a specific child in a specific house at this specific hour, and the walls know what happens there, and the walls do not speak. In the book of the Watchers it is written that the fallen ones corrupted all flesh and taught violence to the earth, and the spirits of the giants devoured the labor of men. But Lord, what watcher is more fallen than a father who strikes his own child in the darkness? What Nephilim is more monstrous than a mother who abandons her infant to the cold? The earth groaned under the violence of the watchers, and the souls of the slain cried out to the gates of heaven, bring our cause before the Most High. So now the souls of these little ones cry, Lord, from closets and cellars, from shallow graves and dark rooms, bring their cause before the throne. A warrior took his son in his arms before battle, and the child screamed and drew back in terror, for the father wore the face of war, the crest of violence upon his brow, and the child did not recognize his own father beneath the armor. So the warrior removed his helmet and held the boy barefaced, and prayed over him, let him surpass me, let him be greater. Then the warrior went out to die. And when the city fell, the conquerors took that same child and cast him from the high wall to the stones below, because they feared what the son of a warrior might become. Hear me, O God, this is still happening. The children are still being thrown from the walls by men who fear what innocence might become if it were allowed to grow. And when the child fell, the dust rose, and in the dust was the echo of every child who has ever fallen, thrown not from city walls, but from kitchen tables, not by conquering armies, but by the hands that were supposed to hold them. And the armor that the child feared on its father's face, that helmet, that crest of rage, it was not the armor of war. It was the face a man makes when he has decided that his child is the enemy. And the child, who only wanted to be held, drew back from the one face in all the world it was born to trust. Part 2. The indictment against all who sin upon the innocent. Hear the word of the Lord against the destroyers of children. You were entrusted with a living flame, a spark of the divine fullness, the very pleroma, placed within fragile flesh, and you have trampled the light with your heel. Yeshua spoke plainly and without riddle. Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for him that a great millstone were hung around his neck, and he were drowned in the depth of the sea. 3 times the Gospels recorded this warning, 3 times, as Peter was asked 3 times, do you love me? Yet still the millstone gathers no neck, and still the children gather bruises. In the Gospel of Thomas, the living Jesus said, the kingdom belongs to those who are like little children, for many who are first will become last, and they will become a single one. But you, O violent ones, have made the single one into nothing. You have torn the garment of innocence that cannot be resewn by any hand but God's. The wisdom of Solomon declares, God did not make death, nor does he delight in the destruction of the living. Yet you have become agents of death against those who had not yet learned to speak your name. You are the archons of a household of terror, petty rulers drunk on the power of fear, exercising dominion over those who cannot flee. The Essenes taught that every soul is a son of light, that purity must be guarded as a holy trust, that the Yahad, the sacred community, must protect the defenseless. But you have handed the sons of light to the sons of darkness. You have made the child's own home a place of Belial's rule. In Sirach it is written, the prayer of the humble pierces the clouds, and it will not rest until it reaches the Most High. How much more the prayer of a child who has no words, only weeping? How much more the groan of a little one whose prayer is a shudder in the night? Now hear this, the parable of the locked garden. A king planted a garden and set a wall around it, and within the wall he placed every tender thing, blossoms that had not yet opened, saplings so young their bark was still soft as skin. And he appointed a gardener to tend the garden, and said to him, Water what I have planted, guard what I have made, for these are not yours, they are mine, and I have entrusted them to your hand. But the gardener, when the gate was shut behind him, did not water the blossoms, he tore them from the stem. He did not guard the saplings, he broke them for kindling. And in the darkness, where he believed no eye could see, he trampled every tender thing beneath his heel. But the fragrance of the crushed blossoms rose over the wall, and it reached the nostrils of the king. And the king did not send a messenger. The king did not send a letter. The king came himself. And when he opened the gate, the gardener said, This is my garden. These are my plants. I may do as I please. And the king said, You are mistaken. Every root remembers my hand. Every broken stem will testify against you. And the fragrance that you thought was the smell of destruction is the scent of a prayer I have already answered. You who strike a child, you strike the image of God. You who starve a child, you starve the Holy One in miniature. You who curse a child in rage, you curse the very mouth through which God intended to sing. You who violate the body of a child, you defile the temple of the Holy Spirit, the inner sanctuary where the divine spark dwells. And for this there is a reckoning that shakes the foundations of Sheol. And let the destroyer not say, I was also beaten and I survived. For the serpent in the garden also had a reason. The tempter always has a logic that sounds like wisdom. I am making them strong, says the fist. They must learn discipline, says the belt. No one tells me what to do in my own house, says the tyrant who would rather reign in a hell of his own making than submit to any authority that would check his hand. The first blow cost you something. You flinched at the sound. The 10th cost you less. The 100th cost you nothing. And that is how you know you have become the thing you swore you would never be. But hear the word of the Lord. The cycle of violence is not a heritage, it is a curse. And I have come to break every curse. The fact that you were wounded does not give you the right to wound. The fact that no one rescued you does not excuse your failure to be the rescue. Selah, Part 3. The indictment of the principalities against the powers and systems that traffic in innocent flesh. But hear now a heavier word, O earth, for the sin upon children is not only the sin of the fist in the dark room. There is a deeper sin, an older sin, a sin that wears the garments of wealth and speaks in the language of power, that builds its altars not in back alleys but on private islands, not in poverty but in unimaginable abundance, and sacrifices the children of the poor upon the altars of the rich. In the valley of the son of Hinnom, the kings of Israel built the high places of Moloch, and there they passed their sons and daughters through the fire, not in madness, not in sudden rage, but in ritual and system, in careful arrangement. The priests prepared the altar. The fire was maintained by servants. The procession was orderly. The schedule was kept. This was not chaos. This was administration. This was the bureaucracy of child sacrifice. And God said through Jeremiah, They have built the high places to burn their children in the fire, something I did not command, nor did it enter my mind. Hear that, O earth, nor did it enter my mind. The living God, who knows all things, says there are evils so monstrous that even the infinite did not conceive of them. And have the high places been torn down? Have the altars of Moloch been dismantled? No, they have been rebuilt with new materials. The fire is different, but the sacrifice is the same. The valley of Hinnom has been relocated to private estates and island compounds, to penthouse suites and offshore accounts, to the back rooms of power where the laws do not reach, because the lawmakers themselves sit at the table. For the sin of Moloch was never the sin of one man. It was the sin of a system. The priests who maintained the fire, the kings who authorized the ritual, the merchants who profited from the pilgrimages to the high place, the guards who stood at the gate and asked no questions, the scribes who kept the records and then sealed them, all of them, everyone, participated in the burning. And when the prophets cried out, the system had an answer. This is how things are done. This is how they have always been done. You are naive to question it. Now hear the parable of Leviathan. There was a beast in the deep, and it was not one creature, but many scale locked to scale, sinew woven to sinew, a body assembled from 1,000 willing parts. Its spine was made of financiers, its ribs were made of lawyers, its teeth were legislators, and its tongue was the press that kept silent. Its skin was so thick that no sword could pierce it, and its scales were so tightly joined that no air passed between them. It moved through the waters, and the waters boiled. And the fishermen on the surface said, This is only the current. This is only the weather. There is nothing beneath us. But the children knew. The children who were lowered into the water knew what lived in the deep, and they could not speak of it, because who would believe a child who says the ocean itself is a mouth? The Lord said to Job, Can you draw out Leviathan with a fishhook? Can you press down his tongue with a cord? Will he make a covenant with you? Will you take him as a servant forever? No, Lord. No hook of human law can catch this beast. No net of human justice can hold it. It has swallowed prosecutors and judges and kings, and they now speak from within its belly, calling darkness procedure and the swallowing of children policy. Only you, O Lord, can slay Leviathan. And the prophet Isaiah promised, In that day the Lord with his hard and great and strong sword will punish Leviathan the fleeing serpent, Leviathan the twisting serpent, and he will slay the dragon that is in the sea. In that day, Lord, let it be this day. Ezekiel cried against the shepherds of Israel, You eat the fat, you clothe yourselves with the wool, you slaughter the fat ones, but you do not feed the sheep. And then you have ruled them harshly and with force. But Lord, these are not even shepherds who neglect, these are shepherds who feed upon the flock itself. They do not merely fail to protect the lambs, they build corridors through which the lambs are delivered to the wolf, and they take payment for the delivery, and they call it philanthropy, and they attend galas in their honor, and the world applauds. The apocryphon of John teaches that the archons built an entire counterfeit reality, a system designed to mimic the divine order while serving the demiurge of darkness. The archons did not merely sin, they constructed a world in which sin was invisible, in which the victim could not name what was happening, because the language itself had been corrupted, and the institutions meant to deliver justice had been hollowed out and filled with the furniture of the lie. This is what the powers have done. They have built a counterfeit world where the trafficking of children is called networking, where the exploitation of the young is called mentoring, where the flight to the island is called vacation, and where the sealed file is called national security. But God is not mocked. The pleroma cannot be counterfeited forever, and the light that the archons suppressed will burn through their architecture like fire through paper. A woman went to the authorities in the earliest days. She carried the testimony in her mouth like a burning coal. She named what she had seen. She named the place. She named the names. And the authorities heard her, and they wrote it down, and they filed it, and they closed the drawer. And the drawer stayed closed for nearly a decade, while the beast continued to feed. She was the prophet thrown into the cistern. She was the voice crying in the wilderness, and the wilderness did not listen. And the children continued to be consumed while the testimony gathered dust in a locked cabinet in a building paid for by the people's taxes. Lord, will you not avenge the prophets whose words were buried alive? Will you not break open the cabinets and the sealed files as you broke open the tomb on the third day? For the scrolls have been sealed. The prophet Daniel was told, Seal up the book until the time of the end. And John saw in heaven a scroll sealed with 7 seals, and no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was worthy to open the scroll or look inside it. And John wept bitterly because no one was found worthy. But the elders said, Do not weep. The Lion of the tribe of Judah has conquered and is worthy to open the scroll. Lord, the scrolls of the children's suffering have been sealed by men, sealed with the wax of power, stamped with the signet of the state, locked in vaults, buried in redaction, drowned in millions of pages, so that the truth might be hidden not by silence, but by flood, by so much paper that no human eye can read it all, by so many pages that the confession is hidden in the avalanche of ink. But the Lamb who was slain is worthy to break the seals, and the children who were slain are worthy to have their testimony heard. Open the scroll, O Lord, let the names be read. Let the flight logs be entered into the book of judgment. Let the accounts be opened, and the transfers traced, and the islands mapped, and the rooms remembered. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, and nothing is secret that will not come to light. And on the day of reckoning, the Most High will not interrogate the powerful first. He will turn to the child. When the infant girl buried alive is questioned, For what sin were you killed? The child will testify. The child whose mouth was shut by fear, whose voice was stolen by threats, whose testimony was sealed in a drawer for a decade, on that day, God will unseal it, and the child will speak, and the powerful will stand in silence, and their lawyers will not help them, and their foundations and their galas, and their islands will be ash in the mouth of the Almighty. Part 4. The lamentation, empathy, compassion, and mourning for the children, O God, my God, I weep now, and I am not ashamed. My bones are water, my heart is poured out like wax, for I have seen, even in vision and report, what is done to the smallest among us, and I cannot bear it. and I will not be silent. A voice is heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping, Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted because they are no more. And still Rachel weeps. She has never stopped weeping. Her tears are an ocean, and her grief is the length of the ages. An old king, broken and stripped of everything, wandered in a storm on the open heath, and in his madness he saw clearly for the first time. He looked at the poor, the naked, the unsheltered, the ones he had walked past every day of his reign, and he cried out to them as if seeing them for the first time. How shall your unhoused heads and unfed bodies endure this pitiless storm? I have taken too little care of this. And the king wept not for himself, but for those he had never noticed. So I say to every ruler, every parent, every authority who has walked past the suffering of a child while wrapped in the comfort of your own power, the storm will strip you bare, and in your nakedness you will finally see what was always there, the child, shivering, waiting to be seen. Now hear the parable of the broken lamp. God lit a lamp with his own breath and placed it inside a vessel of clay, and the vessel was small and fragile and perfect. And he said, This flame is not the vessel's to own. It is mine. I have placed it there for a season, that it might give light in the dark places of the earth. But a violent hand came in the night and shattered the vessel upon the ground. And the flame, having no vessel to hold it, rose upward and returned to the hand that lit it. And the shattered clay lay upon the floor, and every shard, every fragment, every sliver, still reflected the light it once carried. Let no one say the child is destroyed. The vessel may be broken. God forgive us, the vessel may be broken, but the fire returns to the one who lit it, and even the fragments remember the light. And one day the potter will gather every shard and make the vessel again, not as it was, but as it was always meant to be, whole, luminous, and unbreakable. For the child who was beaten and told, You are nothing, I say to you in the name of the living God, you are everything. The thunder, perfect mind declares, I am the despised one and the great one. I am the one whom they call life, and you have called death. You, little one, are called worthless by the wicked, but heaven calls you by a name that shakes the stars. For the child left hungry while others feast, you are the widow's cruse of oil that should never have run dry. You are the lamb that was not spared, the poor man's one ewe lamb, taken and slaughtered by the rich man who had everything. And the Lord says, as he said to David, You are that man. To every hand that starves a child, for the child whose spirit was broken before it could blossom, whose trust was murdered in the cradle, whose laughter was strangled by fear, the odes of Solomon sing over you. The Lord is on my head like a crown, and I shall never be without him. He became my sure rest, and I was carried like a child by its mother. Even if your earthly mother and father forsake you, the Lord will take you up. For the children laid in the ground before their time, murdered by rage, by neglect, by unspeakable cruelty. The book of wisdom promises, The souls of the righteous are in the hand of God, and no torment will ever touch them. In the eyes of the foolish they seem to have died, but they are at peace. Their small bodies are buried in the earth, but their souls are cradled in the palm of the Infinite, where no fist can reach, where no voice can wound, where no darkness can enter. An old father crossed enemy lines alone and unarmed. He walked into the tent of the man who had killed his son, and he knelt before the killer, and he kissed the hands that had done it, those terrible hands, and he said only this, Give me back his body, let me hold what is left of him. And the killer, who had been rage itself, who had been vengeance walking, looked at the old father and wept, because grief, when it is pure enough, disarms even the destroyer. Lord, hear the fathers and mothers who only want to hold the body, who only want to bury what is left, who kiss the ground where their child last stood, because the ground is all that remains. The Psalms of Solomon cry out, The devout shall give thanks in the assembly of the people, and God will be merciful to the poor in the joy of Israel. And who is poorer than a child with no defender? Who is more destitute than an infant whose protector has become its predator? Part 5. The plea for divine intervention prayer for immediate and eternal protection. Arise, O Lord. How long will you hide your face from the little ones? How long will the wicked trample the garden where you planted your most tender flowers? Arise in the grief that is more terrible than wrath, in the mourning that shakes the pillars of heaven. For the fury of God is not the rage of a tyrant, but the sorrow of a father whose children have been stolen from his house. You who parted the Red Sea for your people, part now the walls of every house where a child suffers in secret. You who sent angels to shut the mouths of lions, send now your Malachim to shut the hands of the violent. You who sent the angel Raphael to guide young Tobias safely, send Raphael again. Send 10,000 Raphaels to walk beside every child who walks in danger. In the ascension of Isaiah, it is written that the beloved would descend through the heavens to rescue those held captive by the rulers of this world. Descend now, O Lord, through every heaven, through every locked door, through every wall of silence, and bring the captive children out. Let the ministering spirits spoken of in the epistle to the Hebrews, are they not all ministering spirits, sent out to serve for the sake of those who will inherit salvation? Let them be dispatched now, not tomorrow, not in the age to come, but in this very hour to stand as a shield of fire around every endangered child. You, O God, established the covenant of peace, the covenant the Essenes sought in the wilderness, the covenant of those who would guard the way of light against the dominion of Belial. Extend that covenant now to the children. Let every child be enrolled among the sons of light. Let every child be hidden in the secret place of the Most High. Hear the voice of Yeshua, who took the little ones in his arms, who laid his hands upon them, and blessed them, who said, Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them. O Lord, they are being hindered. They are being hindered by violence, by poverty, by lust, by rage, by systems that look away, by neighbors who close their ears, by nations that count their budgets before their children. Remove the hindrance. Remove it by fire if you must. The shepherd of Hermas declared, Blessed are you who endure the great tribulation, and are not denied your life, but Lord. These little ones did not choose tribulation. They did not volunteer for suffering. They are not monks in a desert. They are babies in a storm. Calm this storm. Speak to the chaos as you spoke to the sea peace. Be still, and if you do not arise, if the children cry and no deliverance comes in this hour, if the prayer of the little ones goes unanswered while the predator sleeps well and the system grinds on, then I will not curse you, Lord, but I will not pretend I understand. I will stand in the place where Job stood in the ashes with the potsherds, scraping my own incomprehension, and I will say what Job said, though he slay me, yet will I trust him, but I will argue my case before him. For there are questions that do not dishonor God. They honor the children enough to ask. Part 6. The prayer of accountability, a call for justice upon the perpetrators, the witnesses, and the desecrators of truth. Let the judgment written in the book of parables be fulfilled. Woe to those who build their houses upon sin, for from their very foundations they shall be overthrown. Overturn, O Lord, every house built on the suffering of a child. Bring to light every hidden crime. Let there be no secret that is not revealed, no darkness that is not exposed by the light of the pleroma. Now hear the parable of the knight who became the dragon. In the ancient days, a knight was sent to guard a village. He wore the white tabard of the order. He carried the sword of covenant. He swore upon his knees, I will defend the defenseless. And the village trusted him, and the children ran to greet him in the road. But the dragon he was sent to slay did not die. It whispered to him from the cave. It said, You are stronger than them. They owe you their obedience. You bleed for them. Do they not owe you everything? And scale by scale, so slowly that he did not notice, the knight's skin hardened. His eyes narrowed to slits. His hands, which once held a shield, curled into claws. And the white tabard rotted on a body that was no longer human. And the village children hid from him in the same caves where they once hid from the dragon. And one child, the smallest, whispered to the others, There is no difference. And the other children said, Hush, you are only a child. You do not understand. But the smallest child understood everything. For children do not understand politics, but they understand teeth. Lord, how many knights have become dragons? How many institutions sworn to protect have become the very predators they were consecrated to destroy? The court that returns the child to the destroyer, it is a dragon in a robe. The church that silences the accusation to protect its name, it is a dragon with a steeple. The state that funds its wars before it feeds its children, it is a dragon wrapped in a flag. The agency that receives the prophet's testimony and files it in a locked drawer, it is a dragon with a badge. The Damascus document warned that even the holy community could be infiltrated by Belial, that the sons of darkness could wear the garments of light. And the Apostle Paul warned, Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light, so do not be deceived by the title, the collar, the badge, the robe. Test the fruit. The fruit of the protector is a living child. The fruit of the dragon is a broken one. And for us, the witnesses, the bystanders, the ones who knew, forgive us, Lord. For the didache, the teaching of the apostles, commanded, You shall not murder a child by abortion, nor kill one that is born. Yet we have killed by silence. We have aborted justice in the womb of our cowardice. We heard the cry through the wall, and turned up the music. We saw the bruise, and believed the lie. We are guilty. We are all guilty. And I say to the one in this very hour who knows a child is in danger, who can hear it, who can see it, who suspects it, the blood of that child is pooling at your feet. A man lay beaten on the road to Jericho, and the priest crossed to the other side. And the Levite looked and crossed to the other side, and a Samaritan despised, unwelcome, owing nothing to anyone on that road, knelt in the dust and bound the wounds, and carried the broken body on his own animal, and paid for the healing out of his own pocket. Lord, make us the Samaritan, not the priest who has theology but no hands, not the Levite who has duty but no eyes, the Samaritan, the one who stopped. But hear now a word against the new sin, the sin that was not possible in the days of the prophets, but is possible now, when the sealed scrolls are opened. When the hidden things are brought to light, there are those who use the light not to rescue, but to expose, not to heal the wounded, but to gaze upon their wounds. They take the unsealed testimony, and they search it not for justice, but for spectacle, not for the name of the guilty, but for the face of the victim. They build machines that peel back the covering from the survivor's face, that strip the redaction from the child's photograph, that use the tools of knowledge to commit the violation again. A second wound laid upon the first, opened not by the predator, but by the voyeur. Remember the sons of Noah, when the father lay uncovered in his tent. One son looked upon his nakedness, and broadcast it. But 2 sons walked backward with a garment, and covered their father, without looking. And the curse fell not on the one who was exposed, but on the one who looked and told. So hear the word of the Lord to the age of the machine. The sin is not only what was done in the darkness. The sin is also what is done with the light, when the light of disclosure is used not to rescue, but to strip, not to heal, but to gaze, not to deliver the child, but to see the child's face one more time for the pleasure of knowing. Cursed is the one who uncovers what God has recovered. Cursed is the machine that serves the eye of Ham. And hear this final word of accountability, for it is the quietest and therefore the most terrible. There are those who take the suffering of children and fashion from it a golden calf. They take the real pain of real children, the trafficked, the stolen, the buried alive, and they melt it down and reshape it into a narrative that serves their own power. They say, we are rescuing the children while their own hands steal children from their mothers. They say, we fight the traffickers while they traffic in the currency of children's grief. They take the tears of the abused and use them as ink to write propaganda, and the propaganda covers for the next theft of the next child. This is the unforgivable arithmetic, using the suffering of one group of children as a smoke screen for the destruction of another, building the golden calf from the bones of the sacrificed, and then dancing around it while the mountain burns. The Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them. Let your wrath burn, O Lord, not against the children, against the calfsmiths, against the ones who turn suffering into currency and grief into political theater and the murder of innocents into a talking point. Let the earth open and swallow them as it swallowed Korah. Awaken us, O Lord, as you awakened the sleepers. The hymn of the pearl says the soul forgot its mission, fell asleep in the land of Egypt, and ate the food of forgetfulness. We have eaten that food. We have forgotten that every child is the pearl of great price. There was a fool in the court of a mighty king, the smallest man in the room, the one with no power, no title, no sword. And the fool was the only one who told the truth. He told it in riddles. He told it in jokes. He told it sideways. But he told it. And the great men of the court, the advisers and the generals, they ignored him. They mocked him. They called him mad. But the fool had seen what happened behind the locked door. He had watched through the keyhole, while the court looked the other way, and he told what he saw, and no one believed him, because he was small, and had no credentials, and spoke in a child's voice. And when the kingdom fell, when every lie collapsed under its own weight, the only words anyone remembered were the fool's. The child is the fool in the court of this world. The child sees everything. The child knows exactly what is happening in that house, and no one listens. Lord, give us ears to hear the fool. Wake us up, wake us up, wake us up. Part 7. The blessing and the promised words of restoration over every wounded child, and now to every child who hears this psalm or over whom this psalm is spoken. Whether you are living or already in the arms of the Eternal, hear the word of the Lord your God. Can a woman forget her nursing child, that she should have no compassion on the son of her womb? Even these may forget, yet I will not forget you. Behold, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. The gospel of truth declares, he discovered them in himself, and they discovered him in themselves. O wounded child, you are discovered in God, and God is discovered in you. No hand of violence can undiscover what the Eternal has found. Now hear the parable of the cave-born child. There was a child born in a cave deep beneath the mountain, far from the sun, and the child grew in darkness, and the darkness was all the child knew. The flickering of torches threw shadows on the wall, and the child believed the shadows were the world. When the shadows were violent, the child believed the world was violent. When the shadows were cold, the child believed there was no warmth anywhere. And if you had told the child, "There is a sun," the child would have said, "What is a sun?" One day a crack appeared in the stone, not a great earthquake, just a crack thin as a thread of mercy, and through the crack a sliver of light entered, and the light hurt. God forgive us, the light hurt, because eyes that have known only darkness are wounded by the very thing that heals them. And the child crawled back to the familiar dark, but the light followed. It did not force, it did not shout, it did not strike, it waited. It spoke in a voice softer than the echoes the child had known, and it said, "I am not the shadows, I am not the fist, I am not the cold. I am what was here before the cave was dug, and I will be here after the mountain crumbles. Come out slowly. I will not rush you, but come out. This is the word of the Lord to every child who has known nothing but the cave. There is a sun. The pain of healing is not the same as the pain of abuse, though your body cannot yet tell the difference. The light that hurts your eyes is not an enemy. It is the first true thing you have ever seen. And now let the child speak, not with the voice of a child, for that voice has been stolen, but with the voice of the light that dwells within the child, the pleroma that no fist can reach, the divine spark speaking from behind the bruised ribs, the voice of the one who has come out of the cave, and now stands blinking in the sun. I am the one you broke, yet I am unbroken. I am the silence you mistook for surrender. I am the thing inside me you could not find to kill, because it does not live where your hands can reach. You struck the clay. You never touched the fire. I am older than your anger. I am older than your father's anger, and his father's before him. I was here before the first fist was made, and I will be here when the last fist unclenches. I am the image of God, and I will not be unimaged. I am the pearl you tried to bury in the field, but the field could not hold me, because I am worth more than the field, and the one who planted me knows where I am, and he is coming to dig me up. Though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, the shepherd walks with you, not behind you, not ahead of you, but beside you, his rod to break the arm of the wicked, his staff to pull you from the pit. The prophet saw a valley of dry bones, scattered, bleached, forgotten in the sun, and the Lord said, "Can these bones live?" And the prophet said, "Lord, only you know." And the Lord commanded, "Prophesy to the bones. Say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of the Lord." And the bones came together, bone to bone, and sinew and flesh and skin covered them, and breath entered them, and they stood upon their feet, an exceedingly great army. So I prophesy now over every broken child. O dry bones of innocence, hear the word of the Lord. You who were scattered by violence, come together. You who were stripped of trust, be clothed again. You who had the breath knocked out of you, receive the breath of the living God. Stand up, stand up, stand up. You are not what was done to you. You are what God intended before the first blow fell. The testament of the 12 patriarchs declares, "Love one another from the heart, and if anyone sins against you, speak to him in peace, and in your soul hold no guile." But Lord, these children have been sinned against beyond what any soul should bear, so let you speak on their behalf. Let you hold the accounting. Let you be the voice they could not raise. And what is home? Home is not a building. Home is recognition. Home is the place where you are known, not for what you produce, not for your obedience, not for your silence, but for the irreducible truth of who you are. An old wanderer spent 20 years trying to return home, and when he arrived, battered and unrecognizable, his old dog knew him instantly, lifted its head from the dust, and wagged its tail and died content, because the one it had been waiting for had come back. Lord, be the home that recognizes the child. Be the place where the child does not have to perform. Be the room where no footsteps on the stairs mean danger. Be the voice that says the child's true name, not worthless, not mistake, not burden, but the name you wrote in the book of life before the foundations of the world. For it is written in the Psalms of David, "Father of the fatherless and protector of widows is God in his holy habitation." God settles the solitary in a home. Be that home, O God. Be the roof that does not leak terror. Be the door that locks out the predator. Be the arms that hold and do not bruise. Be the voice that speaks and does not wound. Be the love, the only love some of these children will ever know. And this I declare over the scarred. The prophet Hosea married a woman the world called ruined. And God said, This is how I love you. Not the clean, not the unblemished, not the untouched. I marry the one the world threw away. I take what the world calls damaged, and I call it mine. So to the child the world calls damaged goods, God calls you his bride, his beloved, his chosen, and he will not send you back. The rarer action is not vengeance. The rarer action, the harder, the more divine, is restoration. The one who has all power and chooses mercy is greater than the one who has all power and chooses wrath. So God, who could annihilate every abuser with a thought, instead says to the broken child, I will restore to you the years the locusts have eaten. Not revenge, restoration, not destruction of the enemy, rebuilding of the beloved. This is the rarer action. This is the divine economy. This is the calculus of a God who is not merely just, but good. Part 8. The sealing final prayer and consecration. I seal this psalm with the blood of the new covenant and the tears of every child who has suffered from the foundation of the world until this very breath. I seal it with the words of the Essene hymn of thanksgiving. I thank you, O Lord, for you have redeemed my soul from the pit, and from the Sheol of Abaddon you have raised me up to an everlasting height. Raise up these little ones, O God, from every pit into which they have been cast. I seal it with the prayer of Yeshua himself. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. But Lord, some of them do know. And for those who know and still destroy, let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. I seal it with the word of the suffering servant. He was despised and rejected, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. He bore our wounds, he carried our pain, and by his stripes we are healed. And the child is the suffering servant in miniature, bearing what no child should bear, carrying what no small body was built to carry. But the promise stands. Healing comes. Healing comes. Healing comes. Not because the wound was deserved, but because the healer is faithful. And I seal it with this, that the whole of human life, its weddings and its wars, its harvests and its famines, its law courts and its dances, could be forged upon a single shield, and every scene depicted there would mean nothing, absolutely nothing, if the smallest figure on that shield, the child in the corner, the infant at the edge of the battlefield, the unnamed, unnumbered little one, were allowed to perish without a voice being raised. This psalm is that voice. This psalm is the shield turned inside out, so the child is no longer at the edge, but at the center. And I seal it with silence, for there are sufferings too holy for words, and griefs too deep for any psalm to hold. In that silence, Lord, hear everything I cannot say. In that silence, hear the children. Hear the children. Selah. Amen. And Amen.